Sorry about the delay. Welcome back to Free Read Fridays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fragath, and today we're reading some more Heavy Time by C.J. Cherryh. Previously on, we had a pretty important breakdown by Meg Cady to Sal Abujib about kind of the difference between people who are currently out there in the asteroid belt, and people on Earth. Um, it's a number of sociocultural differences, and a lot of those differences are a result of uh, Aztecs. No, no, not those Aztecs. The other ones. Um, explorations or exploitations. The company that basically owns the the operations around the asteroid belt, um, where our characters are. Uh, so corporate interference changing human behavior. Um, Also things like not having air just there. Like you have to import air, so things are different values because different things are precious that you take for granted on Earth that just aren't something you can take for granted there in the belt. So between that, you also had Meg Cady's plan to try and get Decker. Do Decker a bit of a favor of sorts, even though they did basically take the ship from him. They being Ben, Pollard, Maury Bird, Meg Cady, and Sal Abujib. Although Meg and Sal are less directly taking the ship from him and more trying to get Bird and Ben to let them use one of them. Basically, their plan is to help Decker get his license back by bringing him out to get board time on the ship, which is something you can't ordinarily do all that easily, because his license has been revoked due to, I guess, criminal incompetence. Well, just negligence, incompetence, and everything that happened. He was non compos mentis when they got him in, so there you have it. They took it away. So at least he won't be going out into space, but now they're going to try and help him get it back. There's only one tiny problem. Decker's not exactly all there. Like, the boy's got some serious issues. So them taking him out there is not on their own some is kind of a sticking point with Bird and Ben, and in fact with them, with Meg and Sal. They're not exactly thrilled, but they'd be helping him, and then all the while he'd basically be free labor for all intents and purposes. Uh, they'd like be paying for room and board, but that's about it. Otherwise, you know, he's an extra set of hands, working on his own ship that he was already working on. So, hmm. They're screwing him, but they're also helping him at the same time. Well, they're screwing him as well. That might happen too. Well, because he's presumably a good-looking boy. So yeah, we're about 2/3 going on 3/4 of the way through the book. Let me just really quick check to see how long the next couple chapters are. See how much I can get done. This week will probably be another short-ish one. I can do that. 2 chapters, 12 to 13. All this while as well, we've been hearing references to the shepherds. I think we learn more about them as we go. The most we know really right now, I think, is that they're, for lack of a better term, they're like a union. Which of course the corpos don't especially like. Um, they aren't really the same thing. What they are, in effect, is, and I think this is explained, they're kind of like what goes on on some of these longer run spaceships that in this universe that go out and basically become a family operation. Um, I think that's what's going on with the Shepherds, but it's been a while, so I don't remember. Um, there's a couple books that are set in this universe that I'd really like to get around reading because they're very fascinating and how, just kind of the way human behavior would change. Some of the ideas of human behavior changing and a few other things that are really neat. Um, there's a, I mean, once I start, it's hard to stop. Like right now, I'm setting myself, okay, get through this, do something in between this, and then Hellburner. So two books that really kind of help set the stage, the build up to um, the actual events of Down Below Station. I don't know if I'll ever get to Down Below Station. That that book's an undertaking. There's a lot there. All right, I've yabbered long enough. Let me get cracking here, and we'll see what we got. Chapter 12. Decker drowsed in the muted music noise of the bar outside, lay in a .9G bed half awake, having convinced himself that there wasn't anybody going to come through the door with hypos or tests or accusations. That was all the ambition he had. He was safe in this place, and maybe if he just stayed very quiet, there wasn't going to be anybody interested in him for a while, including Bird and including Ben. Please God. He got hungry, and hungrier. Breakfast hadn't been much. Finally, he looked at his watch. Just looked at it a while. Didn't know the right hour. Bird had told him it had been off. But it was August 16th. It stayed August 16th. He knew where he'd gone off, and how absolutely unhinged he'd come. Would never have thought he was capable of going off that far. Would have hoped better of himself, at least. He'd kept a sort of routine on the ship once he'd slowed the tumble with the docking jets, enough to move about a little, do necessary things. Irrational things, he thought now. Some of them completely inane, because Corey would have. God, he'd nearly killed himself doing housekeeping routines. Because Corey would have. He wasn't sure how much he'd forgotten. There were some holes he never seemed likely to patch. Other memories weren't in any kind of order. He was scared to try to sort them, afraid he'd find some other memory to leap up and grab him by the throat. Like that damned flash on the shower wall, the watch. He couldn't even remember if he'd had a shower the day of the accident. No, he thought, there'd been too much going on. Hole there. Deep hole. Scary one. His heart was thumping. It was just the green wall, the place aboard Bird's ship that looked exactly like his own. That was where he'd gotten lost. But there were so many other places. The bar outside, the deck, the people he didn't know. He was hungry and he didn't want to go out and face people and questions and strangers. So he lay still a long while and listened to the beat of the music, and finally took his pills when he figured it must be time. Then his stomach began to be upset in earnest. He figured he should go get something to eat to cushion the pills, so he ventured out as far as the bar. No one out there that he remembered but the owner, who didn't meet him with any friendliness. No, they didn't serve lunch. There were chips, $1.50 a package. Want any? He took a package and a soft drink, wanted them on his card, but the owner said he was on Birds and wouldn't take no. He didn't want to fight. He took his card back and moused back to his room, upset. He didn't know why, except he didn't know what the terms were, or why he was too scared to demand the damn chips go on his card. But he was, and he was ashamed of himself. He ate the chips with a lump in his throat, sat there on the bed and thought about taking a sleeping pill and just numbing out for a few hours, because he'd been dislocated out there. Nothing and no one out there was familiar. He couldn't sit here and go around and around in mental circles all day. He hadn't the routines that kept him sane. He was sitting here waiting for something he didn't know what, and he couldn't keep out of mental loops. He took out the sack of pills, looked at the size of the bottle that was sleeping pills. God, he thought, what are they doing? How many of these are there? In which curiosity, he poured the pills out on the counter and counted them. 212 pills. Didn't intend for me to want refills on that one for a while. He might be a little micro-focused. He tended to do that lately. Maybe it was brain damage. But his amusements had gotten very narrow in hospital. Bitter, constant harassment. Move and counter. They moved. You moved. You didn't trust them. They never made consistent sense. He spilled pills out onto the nightstand and started counting. Vitamin pills, potassium, 30 or so each. The calcitropin stuff, enough for a month. Big bottle labeled stomach distress, as needed. Another labeled for pain, one every 4 hours. 40 of those. Decongestant, 45 pills, one every 4 hours. Diuretic, 60 pills, one daily. Drink plenty of liquid. Anti-inflammatory, 40 pills, take 2 before meals. Depression, 60 pills, alcohol contraindicated. He sat there with those piles of pills, the one of them making this towering great heap on the counter, and he stared at it, and he stared, and he thought, 212 sleeping pills? What did they do? Misread the prescription? No, that's not it, is it? Corey's dead. They tell me I'm crazy. They take my ship and take my license and tell me I won't fly again. And they give me 60 uppers and 212 sleeping pills? They really don't want me to screw up my exit. He hadn't known where he was going or what he was doing until he'd stared at that heap of pills a while. He thought, first they kill Corey, then they want me dead. The hell with that. He raked the pills into the appropriate bottles, wondering if there was a way to get into the corporation level. No, that was crazy. Really crazy people went into places and killed people who didn't have anything to do with their problems. Some innocent little key pusher or some smooth corporat bastard. Neither one was going to get to the people responsible. Somebody was outside. Somebody knocked on his door, and a cold panic shot through him. Decker? Yeah, he said. Decker? A woman's voice, one of Bird's friends. He didn't know why his hands were shaking. He didn't know what he'd just been doing or thinking that deserved it, but his heart went double time, and reason had nothing to do with it. It's Meg Cady. You want to open the door? He raked the pill bottles into the plastic bag, the bag into the drawer. Not all of it fit. He made it. Decker? Severe spook, Sal had called him, and face to face with him, Meg was very much afraid Sal might be right. He opened the door a crack, listened with a dead, cold expression while she explained she and Sal wanted to buy him a drink. Thought you might be tired of the walls. Come on, get some air. Have a drink or two. He looked as if at any second he was going to slam that door and lock it in her face. Maybe with reason, Meg thought. The man must know Ben didn't like him, and he might have a real suspicion about the rest of Bird's friends. Hey, she said, and gave him her friendliest grin. You're not afraid of us. If that and the sweater she was wearing didn't get a man out of his room, she hadn't got a backup. Decker muttered under his breath, looked rattled, and felt over his pockets. This place to leave safe This place safe to leave stuff? Yeah, anybody boost stuff from the hole? He's Mike's breakfast sausage. How you feeling? All right. Dead tone. All right. Decker came out, let his door lock, walked with her down the hall to the bar like he was primed and ready to jump. Severe spook. Yeah. Or suspicious of them and their motives. Sal was waiting. Easy to capture a table with space around it. Traffic at this hour was real light, most people being about their business. They went through the social dance. Hello there, good looking. How are you feeling? Sal pulled a chair out, got up. He sat down. She sat down. Meg sat. Mike, thank God, got right over for the orders. Spiced rum? Decker asked. Premium price, Mike said. Decker hesitated, reached for his card. Meg put a hand in the way. Let us buy. Upset him. He slowly put his card on the table. Put it on mine. All of it. Rum and whatever they're having. Meg shot a look at Sal, and gave Mike a shrug. What the man wants, she said, thinking, pricey tastes he's got. Mike took the card. Decker started to lean back, arm over the chair back, like it was a fortified corner he wasn't going to be pried out of, but the hand was shaking. He put it on the tabletop. Sal said, What do you go by? Deck, to friends. Deck. Sal reached out across the table. Sal. Abujib, if you got to find me. He hesitated, then made a snatch forward and, and solemnly took Sal's hand. Meg reached hers out. My Greek Katie. Cold fingers, scared spitless. Meg'll page me anywhere. There's only one on R2. You been out of that room lately? Today? Whoops. You been out of that room today? Lunch, he said. Any good? He shrugged. Mike got the drinks over, fast, thank God, a merciful few beats without conversation. Decker picked up his drink. Meg lifted her glass with a flourish. Welcome to R2, Deck. Thanks, he said faintly. Thanks for the drinks. You remember us at all? He nodded. Sal said, We better say, before anything else, we're the ones that have way out least. He didn't react at all to that, just kept looking at Sal. I'm the pilot, Meg said. Sal's my numbers man. You were the primary license on your team, right? Decker nodded glumly, watching them every move. He held the rum in one hand, the other arm over the chair. Yeah, I was. Excuse. She leaned her elbows on the table and cut down the distance. Let's be frank here. They busted your license. Bird and Ben claimed your ship, but they haven't cut you off cold either. They risked their financial asses saving your life. Understand? A lot of expenses. Yeah. So we got a lease on what used to be your ship, and probably you aren't real happy with us. Decker said tonelessly, Yeah, well, not your fault. No hard feelings. But, Sal butted in, we got to thinking how we could do you and us both some real good. Meg said quickly, we figure you want your license reinstated, which you got to have board time for, which could be expensive if you had to get it from the company, and you still might need some help to get past the bureaucrats. Decker gave her a quick, plain, what in the hell are you up to stare. Sheilavec, she said quietly, because even in the bar, even with the music going, you had to worry about bugs lately, since the cops had searched the place. You ran into real trouble, got ground up in the gears entirely, you and your partner. Where are you from? Saul Station? Decker nodded. Neo out here? 2 years. His jaw was set, not going to say a syllable more than he had to. Improvement on yesterday, she thought. Brute put, Deck, you got yourself into one hell of a mess, and there's buku guys on R2 who'd pick your pocket the rest of the way. But as happens, we're not them, and Bird's a blue skyer, so he knows where you come from. Not that we owe you, mind. But Bird doesn't like to take advantage. There's some things we can't fix. But suppose we could. What's prime business on your mind right now? What can we do most for you? He shook his head, staring elsewhere. Mad. I don't blame you, Junfei. But are you going to spite yourself? What can we do to even things up? Anything you need? Another shake of the head. Yeah, well, you know what the corporates want, don't you? That got a look, a nasty one. They want you all theirs, Junfei. They don't like the independents. Whoops, they really don't like the independents. Their charter makes them have to accept us, but they got you right down to signing with the company. They won't sign me with the company. I haven't got a license. Oh, they'll give it back to you, Junfei, when you're theirs. Aztec's regulations screwing you over and Azbank ready to lend you money. What are you running on now? Mind my asking? Yeah, I mind. Good. Do mind. But do you want to get that license without them? A little reaction there. Not a word. We got a deal for you. You get time at our boards, you take our help, you, me, Sal, Bird, and Ben. We all make our own little arrangement that gets you working again, gets you fed, boarded, and eventually reinstated. How's that? Interest at last. Hostility. Why? Goodness of your heart, Rab. You pay us cash for our time if you can pay us, or you pay us a share plus lease after that. That's Bird's word on it. If you pass muster by Sal and me. He looked somewhere else. She let the silence hang there a moment, then said, We're not hard to get along with, Deck. We're fair good company. My partner's dead. Do you bloody mind? Sal said, She fond of you starvin'? Cold bitch, June Rab. Decker looked bloody death at her, but Sal sailed right on. But I guess she wasn't a cold bitch at that, and she wouldn't like what you're doing to yourself if she was here, which she isn't, nor will be hereafter. She's signed off, man. We all do. Death's life, you know, and it keeps on. Shove off. Decker pushed his chair back and got up. Meg did, laid a hand on his arm. He slung it off. Mike, over at the bar, was probably reaching for the length of pipe he kept. She said, quietly, lifting both hands, Easy, easy. No cops here. No offense. Help here. That's all. You're an antique, you know it. You're a friggin' antique. Rab's gone. You're not in it anymore. She actually felt a painful spark of interest. The jeune fille more lately from Saul and more in the current. True? She tilted her head, took a damn you stance, and said, You got better, little plastic? He was 20, maybe. You wouldn't tell it by the eyes. But the body, the way he let himself be jerked off course, scared as he was, that was all young fool. Maybe he didn't really even want to care about what she thought now. He'd only attack blind, young fool like, and for just a single unquiet moment, knew she'd just attacked him back. Come out of it. It's the 20s. So, what's the 20s got to offer us the 15 didn't? Corporates in fancy suits? Here at R2's still the teens. Maybe I don't like your tomorrow, little corporate. It's 2323 on Sol, and they're building warships to blow the human race to hell. Lot you changed, whole fucking lot you changed. So what's the word, little plastic? The word's business suits. The word's grab it before it goes. That's all. That's all the good you did. Bitter news. No better than she already knew. But she balanced on the balls of her feet, hands in belt, shrugged and said, It goes on, young Rab. Didn't we tell you back in the 15? Wake up. You're going to fly for them? I'm not flying for anybody. You'll be living off the corporate sandwich lines the rest of your life if you do the fool now. They'll own you. And you'll be flying some damn refinery pusher till you're older than Bird. She added quietly, gently, Or you can sit down, June Fee, listen to me, and use your brains for more than ballast. He stood there without saying anything. Meg thought, with Sal in the tail of her eye, God's sake, don't move, Abujib. Keep your friggin' mouth shut. Kid's going to blow if you draw breath. Decker looked away from her then, hooked a leg around his chair front, and melted down into it. Meg heaved a sigh, sank into the chair next to him, where he had to look her in the eyes. "Let us make up, June Rab. Let's not do deal right now. Let's just take you out on the deck and show you the cheap shops." "I don't feel like it." "Not far. Relax. We're severely reprehensible, but we don't take advantage. Won't push you. Just a little walk." Kid was scared white, and he managed not to look her in the eyes. "Come on," she said. "You've seen too much of hospitals. Sal and I'd like to spend a little. See you get fixed up with a." Sorry about that. Ah, here we go. Kid was scared white, and he managed not to look her in the eyes. "Come on," she said. "You've seen too much of hospitals. Sal and I'd like to spend a little. See you get fixed up with a bit more'n friggin' plastic bag for Kit. Like to stand you a few personals, you copy? Even if you decide not to take the rest of our offer." She figured Sal was having a stomach attack right now, knowing Sal. "Meg," Sal'd say, "you want to pass out tracts, too?" Decker's breathing grew calmer after a moment. He said, "Shove off." "You're telling us you want to go with the company. We should leave you alone. Just stay out of your life?" A few more breaths. He picked up the glass with a shaking hand, drained it, and set it down empty, except the ice. Then he nodded, and seemed to fall in on himself a little. "Yeah, all right, whatever." Like they could chop him up in pieces if they wanted to. He didn't care. She put her hand on the back of his chair, stood up, and he stood up. She showed him toward the door with, "Mike, tell Byrd we're shopping." And Sal, damn her, with the nerve of a dock monkey, locked on to Decker's arm as they headed him out the door, saying, "I know this place. Absolute first rate. You got to see. All right?" Clearly, I should have titled this chapter Decker Goes Out. "Medium," he told the dealer, embarrassed by his company, exhausted by the walk, not sure he wasn't going to be had in various ways, some possibly dangerous, but he couldn't prove it. He'd broken what Corey called Rule 1, going off with belters he didn't at all know, into shops they did know, taking their word about who to deal with and who to trust. He didn't know whether they were on Bird's side of things or not. Ben's, for all he knew, but they were having a good time, and he was out of the funk he'd tried to sink into. Drifting a little, maybe. But they'd gotten him moving. They'd made him mad, but they'd done more for his nerves than all of Visconti's pills. He was alive. He was thinking about something besides Corey, overwhelmed with music, with colors and textures and excited, cheerful voices. He was halfway happy for a moment. "Now, no shiz, Pat. You give him our deal now," Sal told the guy, whatever that meant, and Meg called after him, "No corporad now, something serious." The dealer brought back pants and a bulky sweater. The pants said medium. They were gray stretch, and they didn't half look medium. The price said $49.99, middling high for a cheap shop. "That's too much," he objected. The dealer whisked out another pair of pants with diagonal stripes, black and red, that looked like a Rab's nightmare. Laid that out with a blue sweater. "God," Meg said. "Not blue. Red. Can you match?" Let's try for coveralls, he said. Blue or gray. Something that fits. Ah, work stuff, Meg said. Dull, dull. No fun. Try the gray pants. Come on, Deck. You got the figure. Starvation, he muttered. He told himself he should stop this. Just get the coveralls traded for something that fit. But they were both set on him trying the gray. They shoved sweaters at him, and in their enthusiasm it was just easier to do it, make a fool of himself, and prove once for all it wasn't going to work. But the mirror showed him a walking rack of bones that actually didn't look bad in the pants, and that could use a sweater twice its useful size to hide his thin shoulders. He wasn't sure, though, about the big slashed stripes on the sweater. He stepped out of the changing booth to get the dark blue one, self-conscious as all hell, and the women made appreciative sounds. Rab sweater, Meg said. Oh, I do like that. He suffered a crisis of judgment then, looking in the mirror outside the dressing booth, and before he could reorganize, Sal said, Suppose he'd fit those metal gray boots? He's got small feet. He didn't really want a wide-striped sweater. He hadn't set out to get metal gray boots that belonged to a prostitute. He damned sure didn't need the bracelet Sal shoved on him, but this is my treat, Sal said. Man, you got to. Push the sleeves up. I need work clothes worse. Blue. On my card. He's trading in the coveralls, Meg said to the dealer. Can you just size him down? Yeah, the dealer said, and hauled out a pair that said small. If these don't fit, you can exchange. You're a real small medium. That wasn't what a man wanted to hear, who'd worked hard enough getting the size in the first place. But he decided he might be, after the hospital. He got the bracelet. He bought some cheap underwear and a pair of thermals, a plain gray stim suit, his old one having been washed to a rag. That was expensive, and he ended up with the blue sweater, too, along with a pair of black pants, stretch like the gray, and black Dockers boots, used. He was tired now, dizzy, and shaking in the knees. He was ready to go back to his room and collapse. The man was toting up the charge, and he felt a moment of cold panic as those numbers rolled up. He wasn't sure now what he'd just done. He wasn't even sure he dared wear what they'd talked him into. He'd had his turn with Rab when he was 13. But not here, where Rab was a statement he didn't know how to deal with, where it was corporate, or where it was a badge of things he didn't understand. I'm a fool, he thought. He thought how Bird and Ben were going to look at him when he got back, and the rest of the boarders at the hole, some of whom might take serious exception to a show-off with no license. He'd forgotten his troubles. They'd made him forget for a few dazed moments and damned well set him up. I think we'd better get back, he said, wanting time to think. His head was going around. But Meg said, Neg, you can't go shaggy. Let's get that hair trimmed. Cut off that pretty hair? Sal said, the way he'd protested once himself, when he was 13. No, not all of it, Meg said. Come on, Deck, let's go get you fixed up. It's on the way. Won't take 15 minutes. No, he said. Which ended him up in a barber's chair, dizzy and remembering he'd missed at least one batch of pills.